You've really aged in the last 10 years. Ah, a single woman in her 40s, what a sight. Mike's husband sneered at me when we met again after a long time. This was the same man who got his mistress pregnant and abandoned me, even though he was infertile 10 years ago. I had hoped he might have changed over the years, maybe even become a better person, but it seems some people never change. Even after all this time, he still looks down on me, bringing up the past and throwing insults at me. I decided right away that I wouldn't talk to him again. But then, something unexpected happened, and it felt like I got my revenge in a way. My name is Maria Garcia, and I'm 30 years old. I work at a publishing company, and though I'm busy with work, I enjoy my life. I'm married to Tim, who's 32, and we've been together for 3 years. We don't have kids yet, but not by choice. We simply can't. When we first got married, I wanted to have children right away. I've always loved kids and wanted to experience raising one while I was still young. But after 3 years, nothing has happened. At first, I wasn't too worried. I thought we'd get pregnant eventually. But after a year and a half, I started feeling anxious. We weren't using contraception, so why wasn't I getting pregnant? The thought hit me like a ton of bricks. What if I'm the reason we can't have kids? What if I'm infertile? I was terrified. I felt like my worth as a woman would disappear if I couldn't have children. I couldn't bring myself to tell my husband, so I went to see a gynecologist by myself. They told me that I wouldn't be able to conceive naturally, and I had to undergo several tests, some during my period and others afterward. Since I didn't know much about infertility, the 2 months of waiting for test results were really hard for me. When it was finally time to hear the results, I was nervous but hopeful. As I sat there in the doctor's office, rubbing my cold hands, the doctor said, "We've done a full examination, and we didn't find anything unusual with you, Miss Johnson." I was surprised. "So, there's nothing wrong with me?" "Yes," the doctor replied. "You have a body that can get pregnant without any problems." "Then why can't I?" I wondered aloud. At that moment, a single thought came to me. The doctor seemed to think the same, and, with a serious expression, "Ted, have you considered having your husband tested too?" "You mean the infertility might be because of him, not me?" "That's correct. It's not commonly known, but about half of infertility cases are due to the male partner." "Half?" I asked, shocked. I always thought it was usually the woman's fault. The doctor continued, "That's a common belief, but as we've seen, there is no issue with you, so your husband might be the cause. We won't know for sure until he gets tested." I listened quietly. I had always assumed infertility was mostly the woman's issue, but now I had to face the possibility that it could be Tim, my husband, so I decided to talk to him about getting tested. That evening, as soon as Tim came home from work, I brought it up. "Hey, Tim, would you come with me to the women's clinic on our next day off?" He looked confused. "Why do I need to go?" "Well, today I got my test results back," I said, "and there's no problem with me." "Okay, and it's not just about me," I continued. "The doctor said that in about half of infertility cases, the issue is with the man." Tim's face suddenly changed, and he let out a heavy sigh. "Are you saying I'm the reason we can't have kids?" "No, I'm not saying that," I replied, "but there's a chance, and I think it's important for you to get tested too." He scoffed. "Don't be ridiculous. I'm a man. There's no way I'm infertile." "But the doctor said it could be. Don't take that seriously." He cut me off. "Everything that crack doctor says is nonsense. No matter how you look at it, it's the woman's fault." Tim snapped. "You're blaming me for us not having a child when it's clearly your problem." Tim raised his voice and, in anger, threw a cushion at me, hitting my head and leaving me stunned. "Ouch," I muttered, rubbing my head. "I'm telling you, it's your fault," he continued. "You're making it sound like I'm the reason we can't have kids." "That's not what I meant," I said softly. "I was just talking about the possibilities." "There's no such possibility," he shouted. "Don't blame me for this. I'll tell my mom too." "Okay." "No, please don't," I begged. My mother-in-law never liked me much, and I had always tried to avoid upsetting her, but Tim didn't care. He immediately caught her and made it seem like I was the one to blame. Hey, ma'am, Mary's saying I'm infertile. Can you believe that? It's always the woman's fault. Right, he said loudly, so I could hear every word. Unbelievable. Right, it makes me so mad being blamed for it. I couldn't take it anymore and quietly retreated to my room, hurt and overwhelmed by his words. Tim never apologized to me that day. In fact, the next day, he started acting even colder. It had been a year and a half since we got married, and though we didn't talk as much as we did in the beginning, this was the first time he had become so distant. Another year and a half passed, and our relationship didn't get any better. Even now, as he eats his breakfast, things remain the same. Tim lazily opened his mouth. Your breakfast is as tasteless as ever. How do you manage to make such awful food first thing in the morning? But today I made your favorite, French toast, I replied, trying to hide my hurt. I like delicious French toast. Who would willingly eat something this bad? He scoffed. Sorry, if you don't like it, you can leave it, I said quietly. So you're telling me to go to work hungry? Well, it's not, like. Okay then, I'll buy breakfast at the convenience store, and you're paying for it, Tim interrupted, standing up abruptly. He reached into my bag, pulled out my wallet, and took a $50 bill, stuffing it into his pocket. Wait, $50 is too much, I protested. What? Got something to say? He sneered. I'm just tired of eating your awful food. Consider this for the whole week's breakfasts. But that money was for my hair salon appointment this weekend, I muttered, feeling helpless. You're infertile, so don't waste money on that. Why don't you focus on improving your health? Exercise a little, you idiot, he said with a cruel look before walking out of the living room. The moment I heard the door close, tears started streaming down my face. I stood there crying, feeling overwhelmed by frustration and sadness for 30 minutes. Why do I have to suffer like this? Days passed like this, until one evening, Tim came home unusually cheerful. It seemed like something good had happened. As I was thinking about it, he smiled brightly and said, Mary, I'm divorcing you. Divorce? What are you talking about? I asked, confused. I'm going to be a father, he said proudly. Father? I don't understand. She's pregnant. We've decided to raise the child together, so please divorce me. She's pregnant, I whispered, feeling shock and disbelief. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The only thing that became clear to me was that he had been cheating. With tears in my eyes, I nervously asked my husband, Tim, is that baby really yours? He scoffed. What are you talking about? Do you still think I might be infertile? But we've been married for 3 years and haven't had a child, I said softly, trying to make sense of it all. It's not my fault. You're the one who can't get pregnant. You're just jealous, he snapped. Too bad for you. He pushed me away and told me to leave the apartment. Since it was in his name, I had no choice but to go. As I packed my bags, he threw divorce papers at me. Get out, infertile woman. I'll owe you alimony later, he said coldly. I looked at him and replied, I'll leave, even if you don't tell me to, but I never thought you could be this cruel. Say whatever you want, he laughed, unhappy. I'm going to be a parent. With a loud laugh, he left. The man standing in front of me was no longer the Tim I once loved. After leaving, I found a temporary apartment near my office. Soon, I moved into a new place, though it was hard balancing work and setting up my new home with just the basics like clothes and furniture. Still, the $30,000 in alimony from my ex-husband and his mistress helped me start fresh without money worries. For the next 5 years, I focused on my job, trying to move on from the painful past. During that time, a good friend introduced me to someone named John Thompson. He was 2 years younger, friendly, and kind, like me. John had gone through a divorce because of his ex-wife's infidelity. We didn't have children, so we really understood each other's struggles. Over time, Our relationship grew, and after a year of dating, we got married. I, now Mary Thompson, felt more committed to my work and my new life. On weekends, John and I would travel and enjoy life together. And to my surprise, I found out I was pregnant on my 37th birthday, just 6 months after John and I got married. We had wanted a child so much, and it happened so easily. When I told John, he was overjoyed, with tears in his eyes. "Mary, thank you so much. I'm incredibly happy," he said. I smiled and replied, "I am too. I never thought I'd become a mother. It might be a little tough because of our age, but I support you with everything I have. Let's do this together," John promised. "Thank you, Dan. I'm really happy to become a parent with you," I said. True to his word, John helped me throughout the pregnancy. He took care of all the household chores and did the shopping, making sure I had everything I needed. 7 months later, I gave birth to our daughter safely. It was the happiest moment of my life. Soon, our daughter Lisa turned 3 and began speaking fluently. One day, when John was out, I took Lisa to the park to play. While I watched her in the sandbox, I heard a familiar voice. "Is that Mary?" I looked up in surprise. "What, Tim?" It was my ex-husband, Tim, who had abandoned me all those years ago. He smirked as he walked over, looking me up and down. "What are you doing here, looking all sad, waiting to get hit on?" he teased. "That's ridiculous. Please don't talk to me," I said. "You've really aged in 10 years, haven't you? A 40-year-old single woman, looking so miserable," he sneered, clapping his hands and laughing. My blood boiled. I had finally found happiness, and now he shows up. He was the reason I had gone through so much pain, and I couldn't forgive him. I stood up, anger rising inside me. I was ready to say everything I had been holding in, but just as I was about to speak, my daughter tugged at my clothes. "Mommy, who is this man?" Lisa asked with a puzzled look. I looked down at her, then back at Tim. Lisa, this is a friend of Mommy's." "Hi, Mommy's friend," Lisa said cheerfully. Tim's eyes widened. "Wait, what? She just called you Mom?" "That's right," I said calmly. "This is my daughter, Lisa." Tim was shocked. "No way, you were infertile." "That's what you said 10 years ago, but the problem was never with me," I replied. "I had medical tests done to prove it." "So this child, she's really yours?" Tim asked, his voice shaky. "Yes, Lisa is undeniably my daughter, born of me." "No, it can't be. You were sterile." Tim's face turned pale, distorted with shock as he stumbled back. I calmly posed a question to him. "Tell me, are you sure your children are really yours?" What are you saying?" "Did you ever check? Because I believe you were the reason we couldn't have children," I said. "Stop it. That's not true. There's no way I'm raising a child with her," Tim insisted, his voice rising in panic. "Well, doesn't it show that it's not who bears the child, but who raises them? If you don't mind that," I replied with a knowing smile. "There's no way that child isn't mine," Tim shouted. He looked completely lost, like he had just realized something terrible. "Maybe now you'll understand what it's like to be fooled," I added. Tim let out a strange cry and ran off, visibly shaken. My daughter, Lisa, looked at me confused as I chuckled at Tim's pathetic retreat. "Man, wasn't that your friend?" Lisa asked, tilting her head. "No, he wasn't, but you know what? I'm grateful to him." "Why?" Lisa asked, puzzled. "Because if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have met you." "Really? Then I'm grateful too," Lisa said, her smile brightening my day. "That's right, Lisa. You are the greatest treasure to me and your father." I opened my arms wide, and Lisa jumped into them. I hugged her tightly, feeling the warmth of our bond. Even though I had been harsh to Tim, I didn't really hold much resentment towards him anymore. His actions, though painful at the time, had led me to meet my wonderful husband, Dan, and my beautiful daughter, Lisa. As for Tim, he eventually confronted his wife about their child. She confessed that she had been involved with multiple men at the time and had chosen Tim because he had a stable income. After a DNA test, It turned out that Tim had no biological relation to the child. He also found out through testing that he was indeed infertile. Tim and his wife divorced, and he fell into despair. Mistrusting everyone, he lost his job and rarely left the house, with only his mother-in-law occasionally checking in on him. Meanwhile, my life flourished. I earned a managerial position at my company, and with a slight increase in income, my family and I could enjoy more vacations together. Every time I saw the happy smiles of my daughter and husband, I felt happiness from the bottom of my heart. Looking back, I knew my decisions were never wrong. The hardships I faced brought me to these blissful days. Now, I don't dwell on the past. With my beloved daughter and my loving husband, I'm moving forward to a bright future, together as a family of 3.